Good evening, everyone. It is 6:05. I thought we could get started now. Welcome to the National Association of Latino Healthcare Executives Chicagoland Hot Seat Series. We are now hosting our second event for this year. We have our special guest tonight, Israel Rocha. He is the CEO of Cook County Health here in Chicago. I want to thank him for being here with us tonight. I'm Christina Martinez, the Chicagoland Chapter Area President. Happy to be your host for this evening. My co hosts tonight are Richard Grego from our board and Diego Munoz from our Chicago board as well. Hopefully everyone's settled in. We're going to be asking Israel some questions, some hot questions this evening for the next hour. I'll start off with some questions, and then if anyone has their own questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A or the chat box, and we will get to them at the end of our discussion. So welcome, Israel. Please, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about who you are and how you got here, and what landed you in Chicago.
Sure. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on your program. And I really just want to recognize the amazing work that the National Association Latino Healthcare Executives and what they're doing to not only to help individuals be able to enter healthcare, but to make sure that people are getting mentorship opportunities and great opportunities to learn. So I'm very honored to be here. And thank you so much for all the leadership you do in the space and for making the ability of individuals to become healthcare leaders so
Yes,
possible. So thank you for that.
yes, of
You know,
course.
as you said, my name is Israel Rocha. I'm from from many places. I was actually born in Texas, and so I grew up in Texas. I always say that we grew up in a small town that probably had more livestock than people, but very proud of that. So it was an agricultural town, and grew up from Texas. Went to school for college and both graduate and undergraduate in New York, and so I went to Columbia undergrad at New York University for my master's program, and then and then my first job actually was, I had many of them while I was in school, but my first full-time position was going to Washington D.C. and working at the Capitol, and so I got to work at the House of Representatives for my local congressman. So it's always important to
Mm,
know those people around and give you opportunities, and so was able to work in D.C. Had many jobs, and in one of those jobs was to handle healthcare for the member, and so got very involved in healthcare and got to see it from many aspects, and served as a legislative assistant, a press secretary, legislative director, deputy chief of staff for the member. Really got to understand healthcare, covered it during many opportunities while I was there, and then got an opportunity to go back to Texas and to do something completely unconventional and not related to healthcare, where I had an opportunity to work in real estate development and franchise operations and really understand, how to grow. And it's one of the things that I will tell everyone listening. There's an incredible thing that is very valuable, which is learn the power of managing a profit and loss statement and being able to generate revenue and how finances work. And I would say from that experience, I really did learn how finances work. And I always say, looking back, it looks like you designed this amazing career. It was a complete accident. I really just did things that I liked and that I found interesting. I went to Washington because I thought I wanted to be in government, but then I really found out that I wanted to be closer to the action and involved in individual ways in my community. Maybe and government service is an amazing thing. When you work in Congress, you get to solve big issues and take on big things. But I really wanted to get closer to where the action was at, and so I decided that wasn't for me. But learned a lot about policy, learned about healthcare policy. Went to Texas, got this job, this opportunity. Really got to understand about how money and funds work, how to generate profit, the tension that comes with having to generate your own revenue and keep business open and have employees, and that really helped me learn. And then, you also learn that someone's always watching you. And so some of the opportunities we think are going to come from applying for positions, sometimes someone sees what you're doing when you least expect it and makes an offer for you when you least expect it. And so I was able then to get an offer to go work for a health system, and that was my first entry. And I got started on the development side of healthcare,
mm,
and then got to work a little bit more closely with the health system, was in charge of their public policy as well as their development, and then kept learning the business and was able to help them through some difficult times and in policy and advocacy, and then learn the operations of healthcare. Was trusted to do strategic development, and then learn more the clinical operations of healthcare, and became their CEO of the health system and of their first of their hospitals and their health system in Texas, and got to do some amazing things while I was there. Create a new medical school, the University of
Mhm.
Texas Rio Grande Valley. We did some powerful things to change the Texas Constitution. We were able to bring equity to healthcare, to create an expansion of healthcare in Texas, and help the system become more profitable and grow, and become a regional, become the regional leader in answering the healthcare needs of people on the Texas border region. And they have great partnerships, and now are a level one trauma center and full academic center with residency programs, and are making a real difference in changing the lives of people in Texas. And
Mhm.
so proud of everything that they do. And always say you have to be proud of where you come from. So very proud of those. If anyone's listening from South Texas, and at Doctors Hospital Renaissance does amazing work, and I've worked with them. Then was able to go. I got a call from an old friend. Say always your connections are important. That there
Mhm.
was an opportunity in New York, and then I moved from being the CEO of Doctors Hospital at Renaissance Health System in Texas to being the CEO of Elmhurst Hospital in New York, with the New York City Health and Hospital System. Worked there, had an opportunity to lead Elmhurst directly, and help them grow and to expand their services and get through the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. During my tenure while I was there, I got to work with Elmhurst Hospital. It's a level one trauma center, and it's one of the large teaching sites for Mount Sinai Health System in New York. And then got to have my role expanded through work that was recognized, and great opportunities that were given to me by my leaders and mentors at the New York City Health and Hospital System. Got to be a CEO of an 1115 waiver transformation program, which was called One City Health, while also being CEO of Elmhurst, and then got to be CEO of two hospitals at one time, and CEO of Queens Hospital, Queens General, and the in southern parts of Queens, and then in the western part of Queens, Elmhurst Hospital, and to really understand how to manage two different hospitals. Elmhurst is a level one primary tertiary care hospital, and
Okay.
Queens is a community hospital. Got to see both sides. Combined was about 1,000 beds. Did amazing work. Also became vice president of the system, and got to help with transformation projects and acute care management for New York City Health and Hospitals. Then got an offer to come here in Chicago, where I'm now, and get to be CEO of the Cook County Health System. And we do everything. We have
Yeah.
hospitals, we have clinics, we run the public health department for the suburban part of the county. We get to operate one of the largest correctional health divisions in the United States. We manage county care, which is the largest Medicaid managed care plan in Chicago and the Cook County region. And I've talked a lot about myself, so really I'm going to take a pause and let you ask
No,
questions. But I've done a
no,
little.
that's okay. I actually do have some. Thank you for all of that. It sounds like your journey has kind of touched all areas of a workforce. And so, just to clarify, so it doesn't sound like your undergrad or your graduate degree was necessarily in healthcare. That was not your initial pursuit coming out of high school, was it?
Well, so I would say my undergraduate was political science and economics, and there is a
Okay.
famous doctor from the 1800s who said that medicine is politics at a larger scale. So, because we all live and die, but I would say no. I first thought I was going to go into public service, but the lessons, you always learn life's lessons, and they're all broad, and we apply them to everything. That's one of the things that I've learned. You always can learn and apply the skills that you have when you come to a position. Sometimes people say you don't have the right training, you don't have the right qualifications. I don't really believe that. It's what we make of them. Now, in on the master side, it is Masters of Public Health Administration. You do learn
Okay.
finance. Healthcare administration is a specialization in that degree, and so it does fit
Mhm.
closer to that.
Yeah, and so the reason why I ask is to segue into more of the second question. What would you say, and you touched on one of them about learning the financial aspect, but what would you say are some skills or behaviors that um, young or mid-career Latinos or any healthcare professional would need to possess? So going through your journey, everything you've learned, what would you recommend?
Well, I'd say first, be resilient. things are
Mhm.
going to come. You're going to have your high moments and your low moments. Neither one defines you. You define
Right.
yourself, your next steps, where you're willing to go in the future, how hard you hard to work. That's really what's important. I would say you need to also have good communication skills to be a leader, because your ideas, they're great in when we talk about them to ourselves, but it's how we're able to take them from our mind to the outside world and help them solve things. It's really important, and that's going to be a large part of communication. Um,
Okay.
Not being shy to ideate and to bring ideas to the table. One of the things, especially as Latinos, that sometimes we may not be willing to be brazen, and we'll have an idea, but we'll keep it back. We need to, I would
Mhm.
say, be fearless in your willingness to present the ideas and be resilient when sometimes they're not always accepted. And that's okay. At least you put them out there. So I would say be resilient, be a good communicator, have good ideas, be willing to think through, unique solutions, think out of the box, what you can do, have some strong understanding of finances, how they work, because at the end of the day, you can only run a system with the resources you have, and as CEO, you are really required to make sure it stays in good operational standing. You need to have vision, and you need to be able to think broadly about where you want the healthcare system to go and provide that to your team through
Mhm.
communication. And I would say you need to be willing to see everybody and to remember that everybody, no matter what position they hold, is an
Mhm.
incredible value to your organization, and you couldn't do it without
You're right, right. So if somebody was feeling like maybe they don't possess those qualities right now, would you recommend a mentor? How would you recommend that they acquire those qualities? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I would say ask. I think
Mm.
people tend to sit around and they're willing to help. Sometimes we don't want to over impose ourselves, and so we don't tell people, "Hey, I'm willing to mentor you." And I think one of the best things that a leader can do is say when they need help, and
Mhm.
mentorship is part of that help. So by taking your first step and willing to step out of your comfort zone and ask someone, "Hey, will you mentor me?" You're exhibiting your first aspect of leadership, is that you're saying that you want help to be able to get somewhere further. That's all we do as leaders as a company, is help push something further. So your first step as a leader will be asking for help, and just those people that you respect, that you admire, that you think have unique positions on the world, different takes, something that you would want to emulate, or that they do something that you really respect or admire. Just ask them and say, "Hey, are you willing to give me some mentorship? Whatever time you have, 5, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, here or there, help me be better." You're going to usually find a very warm reception for those types of questions.
Yeah, I think too, even just to piggyback on that, just asking a question will help build your courage as well, right? So, okay, great. Thank you. Anything you would recommend to your younger self? Knowing what you know now, what would you wish you would have known or you would have told yourself?
I would say enjoy the moments. Don't take
Okay.
everything so seriously, and recognize the criticisms that come, because you have to recognize them. Don't dwell on them, but
Mhm.
really enjoy the highs, enjoy the friends, enjoy the people, and make sure that you enjoy every step that you move forward. I think I did that as much as I could, but sometimes we get so concentrated on what we want to accomplish as leaders, especially. You know,
Mhm.
we're wanting to go somewhere that it's all about where we're focused, where we're going, that we forget the amazing things that we're doing. So I would just say stop and enjoy. Don't take anything too seriously, and make sure that you keep your eye on where you're wanting to go. And when you encounter things or setbacks or challenges or doubts, move past them as quickly as you can. Keep your eye on the ball and keep moving forward.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. That's even a life. You could apply that to life in general. Just enjoy the moment. Yeah. Okay, switching gears a little bit. Um, it sounds like you worked in a lot of metropolitan areas, right? Very diverse areas. Just through your experience, do you feel that the Latinos are underrepresented in healthcare industry? Do you feel that we could do a better job? And, what is your take on that?
I would say at first I'm a numbers person. So I always start by the numbers, because everybody will say, well, what is exactly underrepresented or represented or overrepresented? And when is enough? And there's so many questions. So let's just start with some numbers and we'll go from there.
Okay.
I think from recent periodicals that we've read and the data from just looking at American Association of Hospitals leaders, whatever data is out there, you can find that only about 6% of physicians in the United States right now are Latino. We make up about 19-20% of the United States population, in some regions much greater, and we're at about 6%. So that means we're not at parity where we would be even within the profession. So that is a challenge to be that low comparatively. When you look at medical school leaders, that's even a little bit lower. It's at 4%. And when you look at hospital executives, leadership levels, we're at 2%. So I would
Mm,
say that, if you're looking at six of all physicians, 4% of medical school leaders, 2% of hospital executives, and we're a large part of a growing market, there's room to do better. And I think that we can all agree that there's room to bring more voices to the table, to have more people represented. And that I think definitely needs to be addressed to move forward, to make sure that we're there, that we're growing, that opportunities are equitably available for everybody.
why do you think that our numbers are so low? Can you pinpoint it to any one thing or?
It's a I would say there's some complex questions that have happened, either a disparity on how many Latinos are going to school, how many professions go. The numbers don't just start, at the 2%, that's the end game. Looking at the highest, the Latino Hispanic leaders in healthcare is the highest area. But when you come down, we fall behind all the way through. And so we have less people graduate than our equity or parity. When you look at percentage of people who've been graduating high school, Latinos
Mm,
trail. When you see them going into college, Latinos trail comparative to their percentage of the population. When you see those going to graduate schools, we really see a drop off in Latinos getting graduate degrees. And then when you see them getting leadership positions, there's a further drop off. So every time it's a ladder and you build, you graduate from high school, you get your certain skill sets, you get your
mm.
bachelor's, get certain skills, gets masters, give you more opportunities, leadership gives you more opportunities. If every time we keep dropping, then you're going to see that at the end, that top rank's going to have less people because we kept falling off on the different steps.
Yeah, that is actually one of our NALHE Chicagoland area focuses. We want to make sure that we're getting into the younger Latinos at the high school level or just before they're getting into pursuing college, just say these are our opportunities here and just providing that resource to them. So thank you for that.
And I would say this one thing, I always do a plug. If anyone's a Latino and healthcare leader in Chicago, we have done something about it, because it's not just enough to say what the problems are. I think
Right.
part of being leaders with have solutions. So if anyone's listening, it may be too late for this year, but for next year, we have created a scholarship program that allows individuals from they're going to their first year of bachelor's all the way through
Oh,
either their last year of medical school or their last year as a nursing leader, that we provide a scholarship program. In the undergraduate, it's up to 10,000 per year, and as a graduate student, it's up to 20,000 per year, and it's renewable every year that you apply. So if you have any questions, you can come to the Cook County Health webpage, cookcountyhealth.org, and figure out. It's every session at the end, usually in May, and we challenge other organizations to do the same, even if we start with just one scholarship, because the more that we put out there, the more changes, and that's one person. And if we continue renewing it and take it to two, that's we're making a difference. So the program usually does between 30 and 60, so we're starting every year, but we want to continue to grow. And and my challenge to everyone is, even in your own organization somewhere, even if we start with one small scholarship, it's helping to help people move forward.
yes, thank you for that. And you know what? We'll post that link on our website as well and then LinkedIn just so that we can also spread that word. Thank you. That's an amazing effort and appreciate you doing that. Okay, so if we are a Latino or Latina in a leadership position, what do you believe is our responsibility? You just said we're not only identifying the problems, but identifying resolutions. So, what is our responsibility, though, towards the next generation of Latinos? How can we help them?
So I'm going to say the first one,
Hmm.
be incredible at your job. And it's
Mm,
interesting that sometimes we don't talk about that enough. But unfortunately, when you're one of the first, when you're opening the door, when you do, the entire you carry, which we all carry with us. You do have an additional responsibility that people are going to judge all other opportunities within the organization um, by you, especially when you're looking at these numbers. They don't know that many. It's the first time people are going to be exposed to a Latino leader. And so, unfortunately, first thing that we can do is do our job incredibly well. And for all aspects, for all people, to send a message that Latino leaders are are competent, powerful, great strategic leaders that can run powerful organizations and take them to new directions and heights. And I think that's the first responsibility we have, is to do incredible work at the work that you were asked to do. And then from there, be an example to others, to show them what can be when we work real hard, when we put things forward, when we're there. I think that that sometimes is not talked about enough, and it's unfair, to be honest. It's a weight.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
two things: carry a little bit of that weight, because recognize it's there, whether fair or not. That's how it's going to happen. And
Right.
leading is leading others. And so opening doors is opening doors. One of the ways you do it is by being an example of yourself and saying, I'm going to do everything that I can to do well at this job. And if you don't, it's okay. Just say, what's our responsibility? To try our really hardest. And if we can't do real well, if something happens, it's okay. Ask for help, ask for other people, do our very best, and do at least send the message that we tried really, really hard to do the work that we needed to. So, because not everyone's going to always get everything right, but try to do the work incredibly well. And then you can start looking at how, because I think through doing that, the other things happen. Then you're a good role model, and other people see you do incredibly well, and you inspire others around you to know that it's possible. You let
True.
other people know that it's okay to shine your light and to also be Latinos who are looking and say, well, what would that be like? And they see you doing well, and that sends a message. And you don't have to do it purposely. You just do it because you're doing a good job and you're working hard and you're seeing everyone. You're never forgetting where we came from, always opening the door and understanding that everyone has value and importance.
I think that's great, great. As a leader, you have a lot of responsibilities in and of itself, right? So earlier we talked about those who are just beginning in their career, but getting mentors. Do you think that it's valuable for leaders, established leaders, to have a mentor themselves, or someone they can um, share stresses, share stories, share, get advice from? Do you think that's valuable for leaders?
Yeah, I'm a believer in lifelong learning, and everybody can help you learn. Sometimes the greatest lessons I have learned
Mhm.
have really humbled me because they come from places that you would least expect. Sometimes the greatest ways to live, to be resilient, come from sometimes our family, that we sometimes don't. Once you're growing, you're like, well, you weren't this, or you wouldn't understand, but they do. They know everything, and they can tell you stories, and the stories that we heard when we were kids have different meaning as we get older, because then you really see the experience and you know where they're coming from. They sound less silly, or maybe it's because we're getting older. I don't know, but
Yeah.
they sound less silly. So I would say everybody everywhere can always help everybody in our own ways. And position has little to do with leadership. I have seen some of the most powerful leaders come
Mhm.
from positions that people would not think those are leadership positions, but in their way, they are leading and changing things in the most powerful and resilient way. I have seen in a former hospital, an EVS worker inspire an entire team around them to be able to be willing to deal with the stresses of COVID because the patients were important and come forward in their own way by doing things and leading the example. And so, what I've learned is that leadership is not a title, it's an action. And so, we always can learn. We can learn from the people around us, and we all need people. We all need our friends. We all need our families. We need to know, and the families are those that we create, as well as those that we're born into. And so,
Right.
who's around us to help us feel good? At the end of the day, I think leadership and mentorship is we help stand each other up when we need it. We're there for good advice. If you don't think it's good, it's okay. Listen, pass it along. But you need it, and we're there to hold each other up when we need it, because we're all going to have those moments when you need that support. So leadership, mentorship, and for me and family go together, because we're all each other's family. Sometimes you're the leader, sometimes you're the mentor, sometimes you're the mentee. And I have learned incredible things from people who think that I'm mentoring them, and then I hear the way their brain works and the way they thought about things, or even sometimes as silly as I don't know technology as well as some of the younger people who come to me for mentorship experience, and they teach me about Chat GPT and AI. Or even
Yeah.
one time I thought the Google Meetup was a place in the library, so I went to go meet them somewhere, and they were all online. So you learn, and we all had a good laugh. And so I think we all always learn from each other. Everybody has skill sets. Leadership and mentorship is about being willing to be open, to talk about the things that you really need to know, to ask for help in a meaningful way that's safe, and to be able to support each other when you need it. And if you can find that, doesn't matter the title, hold on to it and take it with you.
Excellent, excellent. I think that's a fantastic take home point. Everyone can be a leader no matter their role, just as long as you're exhibiting those qualities that we mentioned, the resilience, the communication. Excellent. If you take anything home tonight, know that you can still be a leader. You don't necessarily have to have that title. It's how you present and how you
And conversely,
navigate
I've
through it.
seen some people have leadership titles that weren't very much of a leader. So
That is true.
works
That
different
is,
ways. Yeah.
hmm I'm sure all of us see that in all of our roles or all of our companies. So, okay, great. I only slotted 4 or 5 questions for you, so and we went through them pretty quickly, but I see a lot of questions coming in through the chat, so we have still 30 minutes. I would love to give opportunity for those questions to come through. Is it okay if we switch to those?
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Just give me a second here. Um, what is one piece of advice you would have for your younger self? We already asked that one, sorry. Let's see, given all of the ongoing conversations and policy challenges in DC in regards to healthcare and overall health, how do you stay above that and continue to be inspired to lead healthcare operations?
I would say we all have the reasons that we choose the careers that we do, and they're often personal. You know, for
Mhm,
me, it was seeing loved family members that I care dearly about, maybe have premature mortality because they didn't have resources available to them, and knowing that they're out there, that they exist, and how we help make that more accessible and available to everyone. And I think what we choose in life, leading any organization, working in any organization, any position, it takes so much part of who we are. And we have trade offs, sometimes away from our families or personal lives, things that we want to do. So it really has
mhm,
to be something that we love. And I think that if we're doing that and we're having something that we love, we see great things come out of it. But answering the question of how do you hold on to it when you hear such strong, you know, just people wanting to distract or take away from the things that you'd spent a lifetime building, hold on to, and I would say whatever has motivated you, use that in the moments when you feel weakest or that you're about to maybe feel
mm,
that you could not do what you want to do, or you're not going to be your 100% self today because the news or other things have really bothered you, or sometimes even more than news. It's you lost something that you cared about, or
mm,
someone that you inspired you, or a position that you didn't get. Hold on to the things that inspire you. Surround yourself again with people that make you feel good during those times, but hold on to the moments that remind you why you're there and why you're doing this. And if you're doing something right now that doesn't resonate with you, then start looking for other things, because I've also done that. I've done work that, it's great, but it's maybe not what I was calling to me. So I changed what I was.
right.
Don't be afraid to make the pivots till you find the place that you're willing to hold on to and find that deep meaning for yourself. And when you do that, that's when leadership won't be something you need to think so hard about. It just starts happening because you're
Mhm.
truly passionate and invested in it. And then it just starts happening because you're so dedicated and people start looking at the great work that you're pushing forward.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the resilience you mentioned too, as having a quality. The resilience is not only about your wins and losses, it's about what might have brought you down that day, right? And once you want to continue to be inspired or continue to push forward through that. So excellent response. Okay, next question. Has your experience in politics helped you in your healthcare career, or do you feel that your healthcare career has been more political than your political career?
That's a good question. I would actually say uh, yes, on both fronts. I
Okay.
think healthcare, like all things, because we're talking about lives and safety and health, it can get political at times. But I would say that working on the legislative side, understanding how the federal programs are supposed to be funded, how they worked, what they did, the vision that people had when they're creating them, the 90% of the time, even though we hear politics, most of the time they really do want to do great things in their own way, and they're proposing these programs out of good places. Um, Finding how that works and understanding those formularies has helped me run hospitals really well to understand where the funding works and was an asset. So I would definitely say that at least understanding the funding programs, how they work, how they got structured, how healthcare gets financed in our country, you know, a lot of our federal programs and state programs, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, they're funded from some form of governmental program. And so to understand that inner workings and how it works, the funding strategies, how they were implemented, has been incredibly valuable to the work that I do. At the same time, hearing the challenges that sometimes sit outside of healthcare, you also know how sometimes they don't relate to what you do. You have to remind people this isn't about whatever cause it's really outside. This is about healthcare, or to be called as a voice to bring calmness to something. Because at the end of the day, I've really have found that as much as there's politics out there, we as a country and as a people are very compassionate towards each other when it gets down to the individual. It's easy to be cold when it's something you don't know. It's
Right.
much it's much more personal when you can bring a story, when you can be that voice. And by bringing those voices, by reminding people why we do what we do in healthcare, how personal it is, I usually see some of those factions start to dissipate. So I would say it's helped me on both sides. It's helped me on one side how to understand the finances, structures of the programs, but also understanding that all politics is personal, knowing how to bring the needs of a healthcare system to something, make it personal so that everyone can see the value to them and their family and their communities has also been helpful.
Okay, great. All right, moving on. How can healthcare professionals break through into the C-suite? So, this one's more just in general, you can answer that question, but then the follow-up part of that is a lot of the C-suite or leadership roles are catered to as far as clinicians, like physicians, not necessarily the physician assistants or nurse practitioners. How would you recommend a professional break through that C-suite?
I would say again, look at the space that you want to work in and really try to make sure that you do well. But unfortunately, yes, in healthcare, you're going to have some positions somewhere along the line that fed into one of those positions. And so you're either going to have to know how to run operations really well, and that can come from any source of business or expertise background. While we always look at the healthcare industry and the direct care providership, we also have large materials management divisions. We have supply chains, logistics, getting
Mm,
everything to be at the right place. I mean, there is a place for everyone in healthcare and a
yeah.
place for everyone to excel. And all those positions lead up. You'll see chief operating officers who know supply chains, logistics, plant operations management incredibly well. You see chief medical officers who know how the artistry of medicine can create some very powerful healing things and how to organize their medical staffs to bring that to fruition, or nurses who know the clinical as well as the patient experience interconnect and can really make sure that the teams are seeing the patient and treating them and getting them what they need. And you have
Hmm.
administrators who make sure that they work together to make sure that that symphony is a symphony and not a cacophony, but that really works simultaneously, helping each other move forward. And I think we pick our pieces as along the way. We find where we fit in, and you do as best you can to make a powerful, measurable difference. And if you're delivering results, if you're delivering work, either at your organization or another organization is going to come find you. Because one of the things I can say about healthcare that's a positive, we're going to need a lot more people involved in healthcare to keep up with the pace of the growing citizenry where we're moving
Hmm.
as a country. You're hearing about nurse shortages, physician shortages, administrator shortages. We're needing a lot of people to get there to the other side. So the beautiful thing about it, lots of opportunity. The short answer to it is pick a path, make sure that you invest in it, know your craft, do well, and try to do the very best you can, and find those moments to take on projects, to be bold and be a leader in your own way, in your own space, and look for those opportunities to showcase your talents and what you have. And people are going to notice. I can tell you, everyone's always
Hmm.
on the lookout for how we're going to do that because the best thing about medicine, it is a science. You are going to either perform really well, you're going to have measures and metrics that are going to talk to your performance, you're going to be able to operate really well, or you're going to have something. There's always something you're going to be able to quantify your work in the healthcare field.
Okay. So I have a really good question here. Uh, In your career, you've discussed the pivots and transitions you have made professionally and geographically. What was your thought process in moving to a different area and completely different state in your career? And what advice would you give someone who's considering making a similar move geographically?
I would say don't be afraid.
Mm,
Some of the best things that I have done in my career is to move to whole new communities and to get to meet some exciting people. And in every community, in every journey, to every place, I have met some amazing people that I think my life would be less if I hadn't met them. And I think the most amazing thing that can come from that is that we have almost an unlimited opportunity to grow. I've also learned that we have an unlimited space in our hearts to let people in. And you're building, as I said before, your own family. And so the more people you know, the more people you bring, the more people that you're going to have to count on when you need them. And so I've had amazing opportunities to find there. But I would say don't move just to move. Move because you find the job interesting. Move
right.
because it's something that you really want to try, that ignites your passion, that you see that it's there. Because it is, we're not going to say it's all beautiful things. You have to move, hiring, moving,
Mm,
relocating, finding new people. Sometimes you're going to be lost. It takes a while to know a new community. It's not all perfect, but at the end of the day, the rewards are so great to just being willing to try new things, to expand your opportunities and to grow. And I haven't moved just to move. It's either the position has been great and it's amazing, or you're at a place where you realize that everyone above you that you want to grow is amazing people too. And so you make a decision and say, okay, I know they're going to be here for a long while, and I kind of want to move forward. And here's an opportunity for me to do that. And so moving can also just be positive. And you tell them, I know we all like each other here, but I want to try this thing, and you're amazing. So you're not going anywhere. So it's okay for me to like things. And I've had amazing people who work for me that I fully supported them when they grow because they give me that same message. They're like, hey, these three people are not going anywhere, and I have a chance to be that leader now, and maybe I'll come back. And I've had the amazing opportunity to have leaders come back and to go out and grow and then be able to come into a higher position somewhere else. So
mhm.
it's a long journey. I would just say take the chance if it's a position and a place that you really want to be in. It's a different thing if the job is great, but it's somewhere you never want to be. That's going to be a little bit of a tough place. I've usually only moved to places where they're both really exciting, where I think the place is going to be really fun, the people are fun, the place, the culture that I've found is fun, and the opportunity is a great time. And I think when that comes together, you usually have a good experience. There's going to be some challenges, don't get me wrong, but good things happen. So don't be afraid. Take the leap. Don't let anything hold you back. Just make sure it's something you love and something you want to do.
Right. Yeah. So you moved from Texas, you went to New York. So in that you had to move away from family and friends, like you mentioned. How did you balance that leaving your family and friends, but building your career? What did you do to maintain the balance?
I would say technology is great. So you call your friends when you miss them, you talk to them. Flight travel is not that expensive, so when you really get homesick a few times, you take a trip back home. And the good thing is about your family that when they don't see you all the time, you don't get into fights. So when you go down, it's always wonderful. It's a celebration, a holiday, because you get to go back and they're like, "Oh, we love you, you're back."
Yeah.
And then you get to go back. So you always get all the favorite foods, you get all your celebration. It's like a mini holiday when you get home. But when you really miss them and you miss them there, there's a phone call now, FaceTime things. Now you can put it on your TV and it feels like you're there. So there are different ways to do it. Nothing will ever replace the having your family there, and those are trade-offs you should be honest about and
Right.
gauge that because nothing completely ever replaces having that community. But you get other friends too, and that's the trade-off. You will never have that. It will never be like your home, but you can bridge those divides. You can talk to your family. You can come see them when you get homesick. You can have Zoom and phone calls and things that makes you feel like home. Put them on the big TV and eat the same food and do things when you miss them. So there's ways to bridge that, but it's never completely like home. But the trade-off is you get to meet brand new people who become part of your family too, and you get expanded. So nothing's ever equal, but there is benefits and drawbacks on both sides, and you get to welcome new people into your family, and you get to travel, and at least when we're those that you spend time apart, you realize how much you love each other, and you get to celebrate the good times when you see each other.
Okay. Well, I hope you considered NALHE Chicagoland part of your family here in Chicago.
Absolutely.
Okay, so back to professional workplace. How do you personally handle burnout? And then how do you also manage your team's burnout? So two-part question. You personally and your team. How do you handle the burnout?
So, I got the best advice. It was so simple one time from one of my bosses who said, when you're really just tired and you can't take it anymore, walk away.
Mm,
And I looked at him like it was crazy, and I was like, "What?" I mean, because it sounds so simple, and you're like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, when you are no longer being productive and you're not your best, and it's taking you 10 times to do something you know you would do one time, then you need to be able to have the ability to walk away and come back tomorrow." And so it's not that you walk away forever. Sometimes when we get burned out, we get we get so exhausted, and then we keep moving, and then you're caught up in the exhaustion and you never hit
mm,
the pause button to recharge. And it feels endless because it is endless because you're never giving yourself enough of the opportunity to recharge, step back, understand what you're doing, and then re-engage with a fresh mind and fresh ability. And when I heard that message, it's something I work with me all the time. Do as much as you can, as hard as you can. And when you need to rest, rest. When you need to drink water, drink water. You need to take a
mhm,
break, take a break. Exhaustion and burnout can happen when it feels that there's never a stop, and that it's always going to feel this way. And so what I would say is you need to find a balance that works for you. Now, I to be honest, I'm a little bit of a workaholic, so my balance is a lot more work than others. But it's okay. But I have a balance that if I push too far, it becomes not healthy and it gets exhausting and you can get burned out. So we all need to find those times where it's not that we're going to just say, "Oh, I'm tired and frustrated, I'm going home today," and there's still work to do. It's when you physically are feeling that ability that you can't and you need that moment, take it.
mhm,
Step away, walk away for 15 minutes if you need to, take the night. Find those times to keep the health and balance within yourself. We are our own best advocates and we forget. So we need to find our time to advocate for ourselves and say, I need a minute. That's at least how I balance mine. And the other thing is keep some hobbies that are important to you. I like to go to concerts. And it's interesting during COVID, I was really sad, but there was a lot of concerts or movies. It's fun to go watch for me as well, or just hang out with friends and talk. You know,
mm.
getting that recharging, or even reading a book by yourself somewhere, or just doing nothing and sitting somewhere for a while in a beach or something that is fun. Have your hobby. Or for other friends that I have I'm very impressed by them, and they go rock climbing and do these huge
Mm,
like races and things, which I think is really cool. I don't know if I could ever do that, but really cool. And they like track halfway through the country and feel amazing afterwards. Whatever motivates you and lets you feel completely free,
mm.
do that. And so we all have work, we all have responsibilities, we all want to do great, but we can't do it without our body and without our well-being. And the way that we can do that is hold on to those things we said earlier. Hold on to those memories that get you through. For yourself, hold on to those moments that help you feel free and do them. If it's swimming, go swimming. If it's running, go running. If it's walking, go walking. If it's sitting doing nothing, do nothing. Whatever it is that makes you feel free, hold on to it and do it as much as you can when you need it. Know when you need to stop and then go back. I at first I thought it was crazy, but I used to spend like 4 hours doing one thing that I just was stuck and I was so exhausted. But I would be like, I'm getting it done because I'm not leaving till I quit. It took me 4 or 5 hours to finish it, and then I now stop when I'm like, okay, this is crazy because I've written the same sentence 8 times. It's not going to do it. I go home and then I come back in the morning. I do it in 15 minutes. So why am I not going to sleep for 4 hours when I could do it for 15 minutes?
Yeah.
And if you're working in a place where you don't control that, don't be afraid to ask for some help where you need it.
Mhm.
And a good employer will always find an opportunity to try to help
Yeah. Essentially, you have to recognize that you need that rest, but sounds like you're saying do self-care, whatever that looks like for you.
you.
Self-care.
Be your own best advocate is
Be
what I.
your own best advocate. Yes. Um, you mentioned books. Read a book. Do you have any book recommendations? Could be leisure book, could be educational, self-help.
Uh, Educational, since this is a leadership thing, and uh, I'm going to missay their names, but I'll send you the link. There's a book called Leadership on the Line, and it tells you about maybe some of the challenging things that people don't talk about in leadership. That sometimes it's tough. It's not as
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
And I found it very helpful to understand what it is. So it's Leadership on the Line. And it's by two authors, and I'm going to say terrible. I think it's Heinsick is one, and the other I'm forgetting the name, but I will definitely get it for you. But the name of the book is Leadership on the Line, and
Okay.
a great book that I have found that I've read recently. So it's something I was remembering that just talks about the different aspects of leadership for new managers. There's a book that says "What got you here won't get you there," and that's the name of the book. And it talks about how sometimes, as clinicians, as leaders, we were really good at being the best nurse, or we were really good at being the best accountant, or whatever it is that we were being the best at, and we get
Mhm.
put in a position of leadership, and that requires whole new skill sets on management staff, on how you lead others and what you do. And sometimes in organizations, we always promote the ones that are exceptional talents and divisions, and then we are frustrated when we tell them, "Well, aren't you being a good leader?" And they're like, "Well, because I used to be the best X, not leading this division, knowing budgets and how to get positions hired and how to move things forward." And they're different skill sets. So sometimes when you feel that you got put into a new place and you're lost and you wanted this leadership and you finally got the opportunity, but you went from doing something that was pretty, within your grasp that you knew, and now you're being asked to do all these things that you didn't. That book can sometimes help you do that as well.
Okay, great. Looks like we're able to drop some of these books in the chat, so we will post them there. Any other questions come through? Let me just check real quick. We have about 10 minutes left, so we can start wrapping up. Please, if you have any additional questions, send them through the chat now. I do have one other question regarding the Cook County Scholarship. Is that open to physician assistants? Is it open to everyone? Any
Open
restrictions on
now.
that?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
No, that's all. I was just asking if there were restrictions.
So the only restrictions you have to be in Cook County. There
Okay.
are some restrictions about being part of underrepresented groups in the Cook County area. And that's pretty much about the bulk of the requirements. And there are some GPA requirements, but that we want to be as inclusive as possible. So it's really keeping something that probably keeps you eligible and maintaining your grades in school. And so I would say go to the webpage and you can see the information. But it's for everybody. It's for undergraduates who are going in. It's for even nursing programs that are sometimes 2-year programs, OB and CBN programs.
Okay.
We covered ancillary healthcare departments. So it's anybody in a healthcare field or profession.
Okay, great. Thank you. Uh, okay, we're getting a couple more here. So, what would you recommend to someone who struggles with public speaking or just speaking in front of groups?
I would start start by speaking. And this is going to sound really funny. Start by speaking to yourself in in places. Start with a mirror. That can help. Write things down and then read them out loud so that you at least don't get nervous, because sometimes we get stuck. But then also sometimes practice with no written notes and speaking what happens by yourself. Then expand the group to people that you feel comfortable with. That usually helps people get started. Some people try, I haven't done this, but I've heard things to start singing in other areas if you're more comfortable singing than speaking. Some people will do that, but I would say normally just start by knowing what you want to say. Start small, and it's okay. Start in a room, even to yourself, because sometimes we can be our own critics and we get in our heads and we sound amazing, but we'll be so critical of ourselves. You could have just given, John F. Kennedy's speech and have an ovation of screaming, and we will be so critical to ourselves that we'll say that was the worst speech of my life and get off. And so, I would say that 99% of the time you are always going to be much better than what you thought that you did. And so, really, I would say first start by giving yourself a break, getting a little
Mhm.
bit comfortable to speak, even if it's a few sentences here and there. Challenge yourself for those opportunities when people say, "Does anyone have anything to say?" Because it doesn't start with a speech. It starts by willing to stand up and pose a question, to stand up in a boardroom and make a comment. And leaders are always saying, "Does anyone think about anything?" And if you're someone who's reluctant in speaking, you're probably quiet and you don't say the
Mm.
main idea that could change the direction of the company or the room. And as leaders, they want to hear it. So find those little challenges to stand up and be willing to say, "This is what I want to say," even if it's small. Maybe it starts in a group that's smaller, that's more comfortable, and it grows. but find those opportunities to start by using your voice and feeling comfortable using your voice, and the speeches will come. Because a speech is just a very long way of using your voice and letting people hear your thoughts and sharing who you are. And we can start by doing that by asking for food, even simple as to say, no, I don't want that. Because sometimes people, we all do it, we'll take something that we didn't really order just because we don't want to complain. Take moments to willing to stand up for yourself, use your voice and let it grow. So maybe it starts with a no to this is what I want, to I'm going to stand up and say this idea, to defending a position, to making a speech, or to advocate on someone else. Because sometimes it's harder to advocate for ourselves, but we're great at advocating for others. So start there and be like,
Yeah.
no, my sister did not want that. How dare you bring her
Yeah.
a rare burger? She wanted it well done. And so whatever it is, find ways to use your voice because at the end, speeches is just about being comfortable and using your voice for the ideas that you feel passionate about.
Hmm. Okay. I like the mirror recommendation. Um, One last question here. It looks like, what, if any, was your strategy in landing the opportunities that you had?
You know, again, this sounds a little odd, and this is my advice can be is I really didn't have a strategy. I found things that I liked.
Mhm.
People asked me to try different positions. And so my strategy, if there was one, was to not be afraid to try things. So I
Yeah.
got my job in DC because the member of Congress had asked me about the opportunity and talked about it. And I had a whole different idea for my career at the time. And glad I didn't follow that. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Thought I was going to be a lawyer and going to different things. And so glad that didn't happen for me. Not that there's anything bad with being a lawyer. Lawyers are amazing, but not something that I later found out I like doing. So I'm so happy that what happened to me happened, but it was a risk and a journey to do that. But it sounded like a lot of fun. I'd always wanted to do it, and I said, "Hey, why not? I'm going to do it." And then realize that people are always watching you and looking for that
Mhm.
opportunity and had an amazing ability to have amazing mentors in my life who asked me and said, do you want to try this? And so I got asked to Austin by someone who noticed my work and who asked me if I was willing to go work with them. And it sounded like fun. And I said, sure, gonna do it. When got the opportunity to work for a health system because someone noticed the work and said, you seem to have a good knack at this. Do you want to try this? And also meant a great mentor and a great friend and colleague, and so many mentors and colleagues and friends and family members as part of that journey. And then someone who I'd worked with on very early in my career called me about the opportunity in New York and said, "Hey, this is out there. Are you interested? And I
Hmm.
think you'd be a great fit." And just wasn't, we're all scared. So to say that we're not scared, someone's lying. We all have doubts, questions, things. But then you just say, you know what? Screw it, I'm going to do it. And
Yeah.
so you do it when it feels right and had amazing people to meet, amazing friends and opportunities there. And then got a completely random call from someone who had recommended me for this job to a search firm in this job and got a call by them and said, hey, why not apply? And had different thoughts and didn't know it was time or not. And got talked to my friends and they said, look, worst thing that happens, you have an experience, you learn from it and you do it. And so you come and you do it and you do as best you can and met again amazing people, amazing friends, and learned a lot. So I would say the strategy for me was not to be afraid when the opportunities came knocking.
Mm.
And sometimes it's as simple as that because we can be our own worst enemies at times where self-doubt and questions can make us pass on opportunities or not take the challenge or feel that we're not ready. Doesn't matter. They called you. So there's the opportunity. They're asking you. Or it came across you because the world put it in your step. Uh,
Right.
don't be afraid to do it. Just jump in and if it's fun and it works out, and if it doesn't, it's okay. You can change. So another opportunity will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Don't be afraid to say yes to the opportunity. Okay. This is the final question. I promise you. Um, Sorry. Let me pull it up here. As a transformation healthcare leader, who would you like to meet or have dinner with?
Oh my,
It
there's so
doesn't have to be
many.
one person. If you have a couple, name them. But who would those people be?
Um, there's so many. I don't know. I have to think about that. Um, there's a gentleman, and I'm forgetting his name, but we we put him for work because he's from one of the colleges that I went to at NYU, who was a surgeon who figured out how to attach someone's face.
Oh,
and do the first face transplants. And that's really important because burn victims and weren't able to move forward. But I'd like to know the thought process. Like, how do you start by just saying, you know what, I'm going to figure out how to do something that no one's ever been able to do and to transplant someone's face? And I say that because he's a Latino, but I would want to know how you even think of it. Like, how does that come to you? And then how do you get the like courage to say, yeah, I'm going to go on and transplant people's faces? That's really interesting. I would like to talk to leaders who have confronted difficulties, and so I know there's a lot of opinions about Dr. Fauci and others, but to be able to lead the country and face incredible pressure and have so many people have different views about the work that you're doing, and to still stay the course, I would like to understand the thought processes about what they did and what that felt like. Whether you agree or don't with people, sometimes the best conversations are to figure out what people thought, how they got there, what their views were, and how powerful people can be in those moments. And sometimes I really just enjoy talking to our front. Not sometimes. I always enjoy sitting down and talking to our front care team leaders because they tell you the truth. They're often very honest. I love it. They don't care. They will tell you exactly what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right, what's going wrong and what's going well with your health institution, and getting that honest, fun feedback from your team, and just feeling the energy because they'll tell you about all the things that they love and they'll tell you about the things that you can do better. And getting that comfort and connection with your team leaders is amazing. And so, and with your frontline care team, and so hearing from your team and those that you work with at different levels when you're a leader is important and so rewarding because sometimes you're like, I need to do better. And other times you're like, I'm so glad that I did that. I didn't know how it was going to work. And they really do enjoy it. And then other times they lead you on amazing things and ideas that
yeah.
they have. And so I would say all levels. I don't know. And that's not even the list. That's just because you asked me right now. Tomorrow would be completely different.
Okay. Well, those are good answers. Good recommendations. I like the face transplant one. That was interesting. I didn't know that he was Latino. Okay, we actually are out of time. It is now 7:01. I want to thank you so much for participating tonight and everyone else who has joined us. We will have a recording of this hot seat series posted to our LinkedIn page in a couple weeks. I think give us a few weeks to post it. We'll add the Cook County scholarship to our LinkedIn page to help promote that. Thank you for that opportunity. And anything else? Any other questions? How can people find you if they have questions?
So
Do you
I'm on
have?
Yeah, I'm
Go
on
ahead.
LinkedIn. You find me tonight on these areas.
Okay.
LinkedIn, ask me questions. I try to get to everyone's questions, comments,
Okay.
and be available. So I would say that's usually the easiest way to get started, and we'll get started from there. So feel free.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn. It's not really anything fancy. Just ask me my friend and ask me a question. And we'll talk.
Okay, great. Thank you. And as far as NALHE Chicagoland, we are having a few additional events coming up this year. We're starting our planning for an in-person networking event, so look for that information to come soon. And then we're also going to have one more hot seat series in the fall. And most importantly, we're hosting a leadership summit in Seattle this September. It'll be the National Association of Latino Healthcare Executives, the National Leadership Summit. It's September 13th through the 15th. It, all information on that, the agenda, the location is on the NALHE.org website. So feel free to go ahead and check that out. We'll also be posting it on our LinkedIn page. Thank you again, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed our time with Israel. Um, and have a good evening. Thank you. Adios.